Alright guys, let's do a video. Notice something very interesting. Yesterday Google had a hot air balloon as their little icon you can click on. You know how they do that every so often. So I clicked on it and it was talking a bunch about spring. And I wasn't able to do a video about that. But there was some interesting stuff that was said in the little article attached to that. And so I went and looked up spring in the Bible, and actually there was a bunch of information about that. Kind of interesting what scriptures popped up. Fortunately, I can't go back to it and show you because it's gone now. What I did today, though, is I did notice that we did our morning prayer. And I mentioned it, Psalm 49:4, I will incline my ear to a proverb. I will disclose my dark saying on the harp. This is actually a very common thing in the Bible, but only referencing a certain individual, and it's the Antichrist. In Daniel 8:23, if you look in the New King James here, whoa. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, a king shall arise, having fierce features, who understands sinister schemes. And that's just a translation, but that's the same thing. Now we cross-reference this over here on the right. We have 1 Thessalonians 2:16 hindering us from telling the Gentiles how they may be saved. As a result, they continue to heap up their sins to full capacity. The utmost wrath has come upon them. That's interesting. Proverbs 1:6, to understand the proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. We're going to look at that again here in a minute. There's Daniel 8:9, from one of these horns a little horn emerged and grew extensively toward the south and the east and toward the beautiful land. Daniel 8:22, the four horns that replaced the broken one represent four kingdoms that will rise from that nation but will not have the same power. And y'all know what I talked about on Daniel 8. I did a couple of videos on it. Actually, that's pretty interesting what that's talking about. So it's all this is referring to the Antichrist. 8:24, his power will be great, but it will not be his own. He will cause terrible destruction to succeed in whatever he does. He will destroy the mighty men along with the holy people. It's pretty interesting that this seems to only refer back to the Antichrist. Now here we have Proverbs 1:6 from New King James, to understand a proverb and an enigma, the words of the wise and riddles, also known as parables. Now the cross-reference for this one goes to Numbers 12:8. I speak with him face to face, clearly, and not in riddles or dark sayings. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you unafraid to speak against my servant Moses? Then Psalm 49:4, which we did this morning, I will incline my ear to a proverb. I will express my riddle with the harp. Psalm 78:2, I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things hidden from of old. And Proverbs 24:23, these also are sayings of the wise. To show partiality and judgment is not good. Ecclesiastes 12:11, you know about Ecclesiastes 12. Hold on a second. Okay. Ecclesiastes 12:11, you guys remember about Ecclesiastes 12, what it says in there. The words of the wise are like goads, and the anthologies of the masters are like firmly embedded nails driven by a single shepherd. And then Daniel 8:23, in the latter part of their reign, when the rebellion has reached its full measure, an insolent king, skilled in intrigue, will come to the throne. It all leads up to the Antichrist. It's pretty interesting. This definitely warrants a much deeper study into these things. And I think this actually could be a way to identify or even narrow down the group that we have now that fall under the criteria of somebody who could be the Antichrist. Pretty interesting stuff. Also, I want to share, a lot of people have been likening the coronavirus to the dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. And it actually kind of links to that. I did find it interesting that under human types of coronavirus, there are 7 main categories. 7 heads and 10 horns. So if it's 7 heads, that'd be your 7 main ones. For this, there's 7 main ones for humans. So that kind of stood off the pages a little bit. It's like, whoa, okay, maybe it does relate to that. little things like that jump out and make you go, that's interesting. What else did I have? Oh, that's my study on the tribes. All right, morning prayer is uploaded. Okay, well, I'm here. Let me refresh that. There we go. Okay, where were we at? Well, we're going to end up doing Isaiah 4. See, here's those Numbers 12:8 and even Psalm 78:2. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old. And that, yeah, pretty interesting study, I think, to dig into that a little deeper. It's those little details like that jump out and tell you a lot. Now let's go to Isaiah 4, where we left off in the Millennial Reign of Christ video series. This is, I think, my night, for over all the glory there will be a covering. Okay, I think we did all this in Isaiah 4. I think this is where we actually, stopped. Because there's pretty interesting commentary over here to the side. Okay, so now we're going to go to chapter 5, and we're going to continue through Jan Markell just put up a video. Okay. Either Princess. Okay. I don't remember exactly what I had planned to dig into. I think we're just reading through, looking at what it says, because it's building up to the description. Of the millennial reign. And we're seeing that. Child was born. I think it actually starts. I just ran the branch. I think it actually starts down here. But I figured, well, let's just read through. So, Judgment of Babylon. Yeah, okay. So now we're actually getting into bits of the tribulation here. Israel's remnant taunts Babylon. So this down here, I think, might be the actual starting of the description of it. Egypt. Fallen is Babylon. That comes from Revelations. Judgment on the whole earth. This may be the actual beginning of it. Talking about the millennial reign. God will swallow up death forever. Yeah, that looks like that down here is where it actually starts. So, do we want to go through the whole of Isaiah and read through it all, or what do we want to do? Actually, I don't know. I don't know where this it's almost like it's reading through the entire tribulation. Because we know there's other stuff in here talking about their time frame, but his visions. Okay, well, let's go back up to chapter 5. So let's see where this takes us. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do these videos in bites as we go through this, because I believe there's some in Ezekiel also, and I need to go actually find those. So let's dig through this. I was actually going to go through the book of Isaiah anyway, so this may actually work. So let's do this like I've done the other video series and the other playlists. Let's do it chapter by chapter, see what comes out and see what relates to other parts of the Bible. And we'll go back and we'll check, especially like Revelation. Should be a bunch linking into Revelation. And then we'll do the commentaries to see if they give us any more clues. Okay, so let's do chapter 5. The vineyard of the Lord destroyed. Now let me sing to my well-beloveds. Let me sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved regarding his vineyard. My well-beloved has a vineyard on a very fruitful hill. He dug it up and cleared out its stones and planted it with the choicest vines. He built a tower in its midst and also made a winepress in it. So he expected it to bring forth good grapes, but it brought forth wild grapes. That's actually an interesting clue. See, verse 3, and now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem, men of Judah, judge please between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Why then, when I expected it to bring forth good grapes, did it bring forth wild grapes? Is he talking about he came to Jerusalem? They wouldn't, or Israel, and they wouldn't receive him, so he went to the Gentiles, and the Gentiles being the wild grapes? Maybe. Verse 5. And now please let me tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away its hedge, and it shall be burned, and break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. Maybe actually he's talking about those who rebelled. I will lay it waste, it shall not be pruned or dug, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain no more on it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. Here we go, we get the answer. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant plant. He looked for justice, but behold, oppression. For righteousness, but behold, a cry for help. So he planted a vineyard. He chose a people out for himself. And instead of bringing forth good fruit, they brought forth bad fruit. Then they went to thorns and briars. So it didn't go well with Israel. Woe to the wicked. Now we know the 7-year tribulation is for them. It's to bring them back into repentance. Woe to those who join house to house. They add field to field. There is no place where they may dwell alone in the midst of the land. In my hearing, the Lord of hosts said, truly, many houses shall be desolate, great and beautiful ones, without inhabitant. For 10 acres of vineyard shall yield 1 bath, and a homer of seed shall yield 1 ephah. Woe to those who rise early in the morning that they may follow intoxicating drink, who continue until night, till wine inflames them. Being drunk. Well, actually, that can actually have a couple of meanings. You can be drunk on power, you can be drunk on all kinds of things. The harp and the strings, it can also be referring just to lust of the flesh in general. The harp and the strings, the tambourine and flute, and wine are in their feast, but they do not regard the work of the Lord, nor consider the operation of his hands. They don't acknowledge him. Therefore my people have gone into captivity because they have no knowledge. Their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore Sheol has enlarged itself and opened its mouth beyond measure. Their glory and their multitude and their pomp, and he who is jubilant shall descend into it. Now understand, he's talking about Israel here. I've told you guys before, there's a lot of Israelis that are in hell. They're in Sheol because they turned away from God. They knew all. And it's so weird because they know who they are. It's the only record of any peoples or nations ever being disbanded for 1900 years, yet they come back to their original language and everything. They know how to glorify him. They speak of him. They claim from him. They pray to him, yet they don't acknowledge God. They don't give themselves over truly to God. They've given themselves over to someone completely different. And this was before Jesus came, and they were doing this. It's terrible. But that's man. Thank God he's a merciful God. Verse 15, people shall be brought down, each man shall be humbled, and the eyes of the lofty shall be humbled. But the Lord of hosts shall be exalted in judgment, and God, who is holy, shall be hallowed in righteousness. Then the lambs shall feed in their pasture, and in the waste places of the fat ones strangers shall eat. Woe to those who draw iniquity with cords of vanity, and sin as if with a cart rope. Let him make speed and hasten his work, that we may see it. And let the counsel of the Holy One of Israel draw near and come, that we may know it. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. We've heard this stated before. Who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Woe to men mighty at drinking wine. Woe to men valiant for mixing intoxicating drink. People that make it a contest. How many have done that before? Every one of us. Almost every one of us. Who justify the wicked for a bribe, and take away justice from the righteous man. Therefore, as the fire devours the stubble, and the flame consumes the chaff, so their root will be as rottenness, and their blossom will ascend like dust. Because they have rejected the law of the Lord of hosts, and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. Therefore the anger of the Lord is aroused against his people. He has stretched out his hand against them and stricken them, and the hills trembled. Their carcasses were as refuse in the midst of the streets. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. He will lift up a banner to the nations from afar, and will whistle to them from the end of the earth. Surely they shall come with speed swiftly. No one will be weary or stumble among them. No one will slumber or sleep. Nor will the belt of their loins be loosed, nor the strap of their sandals be broken. This is pretty strong admonition here. Whose arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. Their horses' hooves will seem like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. Their roaring will be like a lion. They will roar like young lions. Yes, they will roar. Lay hold of the prey. They will carry it away safely, and no one will deliver them. In that day they will roar against them, like the roaring of the sea. And if one looks to the land, behold, darkness and sorrow, and the light is darkened by the clouds. This is a pretty dark admonition here. And it's to the Jewish people. It's to Israel. And I think this is probably talking about a particular time frame back then, but this can also be talking about what's coming. This is the really interesting thing about Scripture, is a lot of it refers to several different things and several different time frames. And you can find that those matches in there on what they apply to. Now, a lot of people disagree with that, but the thing is, if you can read it and you see the same words being used in the same order, and then go into the New Testament and see it talking about end times, pretty good chance that that's what it's applying to. God said himself, I'll prove the end from the beginning. So we use the beginning to prove the end. So we have a disappointing harvest. Excuse me. In a picture of great beauty, Isaiah describes a vineyard situated on one of the sunny heights visible from Jerusalem. Every care which an experienced vine dresser could devise has been extended on it, but in vain. The vine dresser himself is introduced, demanding if more could have been done. When God selects a nation or church or an individual for high and holy work in the world, and expends care and pains on the preparation of the instrument, and his plans miscarry through no failure of his part, but through the obstinacy or obtuseness of the human soul, the measure of what might have been is the gauge of its doom. The worst weeds grow on the richest soil. This picture is the counterpart of Paul's dread of being a castaway. It's referencing 1 Corinthians 9:27. But I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. So what he's saying is that when God takes the time to change somebody, to mold somebody, to take that rough-hewn stone and carve it himself into what he wants, a vessel he can use, but we don't answer that call. So this is a big understanding here. When we don't answer that call, when we don't respond to what God has done or is doing in us, that creates a very bad situation for us, because now he's gone through all this work and it didn't yield anything. So this is why, I guess, kind of ironically, this is why I've been the last 2 weeks, I think, been harping on, if you have a ministry, keep doing your ministry. Don't stop your ministry. He called you for that for a reason. And it's to reach people. It's to help people. It's to lead people. Until Jesus comes, we're the ones feeding the sheep now. This responsibility has fallen on us, but it's for a reason. And so if you have a ministry, don't give up your ministry. Hang tough with it. Because it might not look good on you if you just turn around and walk away because you're frustrated or disgusted with it. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get disgusted. Yet another reason why I block people who want to rail I just don't have time for that stuff, and I'm not going to get discouraged from the task that I've been done. God will deal with them, and I don't do it out of hatred. So I just don't want any distractions or anyone to bring me down, because I'm doing this for Him, not for anyone else. The 6 woes which follow, arising from drunkenness and avarice, remind us of the sorrows that menace the selfish heart. How different such a lot to the blessedness of the humblest soul that possesses God and is possessed by Him. Evil shall slay the wicked, and they that hate the righteous shall be condemned. Jehovah redeemeth the soul of His servants, and none of them that take refuge in Him shall be condemned. And that's coming out of Psalm 34, 21, 22. Evil shall slay the wicked, and those who hate the righteous shall be condemned. The Lord redeems the soul of His servants, and none of those who trust in Him shall be condemned. Amen. But we've been harping on this a lot lately. If you're going to say you're putting your trust in Him, show it. Put your trust in Him. A lot of people are freaking out right now. A lot of people have gone very quiet right now because of the situations that are going on. Look, I get it. You can't say, well, Mr. Christian, you don't understand. You're out there pretty much by yourself. Everything's going good. But my brother's on quarantine. He was tested yesterday. So his son is having to stay with my mom. We're all having to avoid each other. I have a messed up immune system. My mother-in-law has a messed up immune system. This could kill us. So my brother has lung issues. It could still get worse and kill him. So this is very close to home. I'm not worried. I trust in the Lord. I have friends online that are sick right now. A couple of them have gone very quiet. Kind of worried. So the perspective is from the gauntlet. The understanding is from the middle of the fire. I'm not just pulling this stuff, from anywhere and saying, hey, you need to do this. I'm coming from the place of disappointment. I'm coming from the place of discouragement. I'm coming to you from the place, preaching from the place of sorrow, discontent, yet I still trust Him. If I'm going to say I trust Him, I'm going to prove that I trust Him. I'm going to show it by showing that trust in Him. I'm still doing my ministry. I've told you guys, if I stop doing everything, I'll still do morning and evening prayer. I was called to do a ministry. I've since fulfilled my ministry. The goals I had set for myself, I did it. He did it through me. But He's not done, because I still have video ideas. So I'm going to keep doing it. No matter what happens, I'm still going to keep doing what I was called to do. I'm not going to stop doing it. And it doesn't matter how bad it gets. I would have to get very sick to not be able to do this. There's one way or another I can still do it, because He strengthens me. All the glory goes to God on this stuff. So, people watching the videos think I don't understand where this is coming from. I've had several people come up and tell me, this is a false flag. It's just a common cold. No, it's not. I've seen the test results. They test you for that stuff. They test you for flu. They test you for pneumonia. They test you for influenza. They test you for everything. They rule out all the causes of those symptoms. And there's 3 main symptoms. 2 main symptoms, but if it's combined with this other one, that's a very high indicator you have what you have, and that is dry cough and pain in the chest, but mainly between your shoulder blades, like somebody might be stabbing you with a knife, and it's very tight, very sore, and you get very dehydrated. And if those things are combined with a fever, that's a very high indicator that's what you have. So if you're fighting with symptoms like that, it behooves you to call somebody. Don't just go to the hospital. Call a doctor. Call the emergency room. Call somebody. Tell them, hey, I think I may have it. They're going to ask you a series of questions, and depending on how you answer will decide whether or not they need you to come in. The questions, and these are universal questions. The questions they asked my brother, he answered yes to every one of them. So his symptoms have gotten worse. So we've been taking him stuff. He's staying at the house now. Finally convinced him, don't leave, just stay where you are. We'll bring you what you need. This is serious, guys, and it's very real. So if you think it's a false flag, okay, but I can't believe you, because I have personal experience in this. I'm seeing the effects of it on a family. I'm experiencing the effects of it on a family. So yeah, I'm right here in the gauntlet with you guys. And there's other people out there that have several family members that are on quarantine. So imagine what that's like. So this is all very, very real. This is all very, I can't even say it's surreal. It's real. It is what it is. That's why I find it very incredible that there are so many people out there that so desperately want to deny the truth because it offends them, or it worries them, or it troubles them. And, well, like, we got people now making videos about hell not being eternal, and they're using the excuse of it's a Jewish idiom. You cannot explain away the things you don't like in the Bible by calling them a Jewish idiom. It may be a Jewish idiom, but it still has a literal interpretation. It still has a literal understanding. And if you're going to say one or two things are just Jewish idioms, so you can't put full stock in them, you need to say everything in there is a Jewish idiom. You can't show partiality. It says that in the Bible. I read it today already in Scripture. If you show partiality, you're now going against what God has told you to do, because He's not the God of partiality. But this is how people believe. Well, here's what I need to do. I don't like this part, so I'm going to explain it away with an excuse. Can't do that, because all you're doing is you're condemning yourself by the decisions you're making, and by denial of the truth, and anyone you lead into that understanding you're condemning. That's a problem. Make the videos all you want, come out with an understanding that you want, but the thing is, if you teach people that stuff, that's where the problem lies. And if you get a lot of people following along with you with that, that really becomes a problem. The word eternal means eternal. There's no other understanding to that. I did two or three videos on this in the playlist of Let's Rightly Divide This. I think it was 2 videos. And nowhere in there in the Greek at all was there anything hinting at a complete annihilation. It's just not there. But people have this concept in their mind that, and I don't mean to get on this, but it needs to be discussed. People have a concept in their mind that there's no way a good God is going to torture them. He's not torturing them. That place is torturing them. This place was created and set aside as a holding area. It's made eternal for a reason. But people are going to make excuses for things they either don't understand or they don't want to be true. This is called creating my truth situation. Whatever. You do what you want to do. Just know that there's consequences for not teaching the truth. So it is what it is, guys. But in all this, because that was kind of a rant, I didn't mean to get off on that, but in all this, and you see this, it ties to this video. You see this in here. I'm talking about all these woes he's laying on people. And he's talking about, if you're doing this, woe to you for this. Woe, and look at the understandings. Woe to men mighty at drinking wine. Well, is that just carnally? It's the act of actually drinking strong drink or wine, intoxicating drink. But there's more commentaries there. But this has other meanings too. Walking in drunkenness, drunken understanding. That would be, if you think about it, if you're drunk, your understanding is shortened. There's a veil over your eyes. You can't see things for what they really are. That's why drunks have wrecks. Their reaction time is slowed down. This has far-reaching spiritual consequences to these types of activities. And it's all contained within here if you read it and understand it, that there's several levels of understanding to the words that are in this Bible. God put it that way for a reason. Not everybody can see it. Not everybody can understand it. You have to grow spiritually in order to understand these things. So there's a lot of understanding in this word, but what that does is when you get into that understanding, it definitely helps you see what the truth and what the message is that God has been trying to get across to people. And if people don't want to receive it, that's their choice. But the Bible's full of stuff about that. It's really full of stuff about them denying the truth and walking away from the truth to satisfy the lusts of their flesh. Because one of the lusts of the flesh is denial of the truth. I don't like that, so I don't want that to be real. And we can go on and on and on about that. Anyway, that was Isaiah 5. And you can see that this is becoming a setup. Great lessons in here because it links to what we see going on right now. But you can see that what's going on with Israel is they're falling down. He brought them out, he built them up, and then they're just, okay, you gave us everything, now go over there because we want to do our own thing. And they're not following along with what God had put for them. And it actually was a very simple thing. All they had to do was do it according to the way he did it, and they kept changing it. They kept corrupting it. That's man. Well, I don't like it like this, so I'm going to change it and make it to suit me better. There's one truth, and that's God's truth, period. There's no associated statement to that. One truth, and it's his truth, not our truth. And another very interesting point to keep in mind when you're reading the Bible is God never spoke in parables and he never spoke in idioms. So if God said hell was eternal, that's not a parable. And he doesn't speak that way, so he speaks very plainly. So anyway, that's my take on that. And that actually went in a lot different direction than I thought it was going to. Okay, I'm going to stop that one there and collect some more information and maybe do another one later. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.